All right, everybody, today we're gonna show some of the ins and outs of the SISU Lab interface. So let's get to it. All right, so let's jump in. So the first thing you'll notice here is we have a timeline. We have multiple timelines, in fact. Right now I've got a camera and I've got a target timeline showing up here with some keyframes. I've got a single target and 3 keyframes. Now for each of these keyframes, I can set the different properties associated with that keyframe, and I can change the different move types between keyframes. Now there's a cursor here, and that's going to tell me where I am moving to or running the program from. So for example, if I want to move from this point on the timeline, I can move the keyframe there, click go to location, and this will tell me, hey, you're going to align the robot here, and if I click proceed, then it'll allow me to align the robot there. I've also got my run button here where I can set up how I want to run. Do I want to run from an external start, or do I want to loop through my program, maybe turn off my digital triggers. Then when I click next, it compiles the program, allows me to reset and then run the program forwards or backwards, starting from wherever that cursor is. So another cool thing we have down here at the bottom is our pre-visualization. So when you click on that, it'll actually show you what the camera is going to do through its motion. So you can get an idea of what those keyframes, what kind of motion those keyframes are going to generate from your robot. And that really helps you to figure out, are you getting the path that you were looking for? And if not, what do I need to do to correct it? And so that's been really helpful. So going back now, we can also add other channels to our timeline. So down here we have our channels. We can click on this, add channel, and now you have the option to add focus, iris, zoom channels. We can also add trigger channels. So for example, if I wanted to add a digital output trigger for maybe a bloop light. So this one was named bloop light, and as I add keyframes to this channel, I can add a keyframe, and now I can turn that bloop light on or off for that keyframe, and then toggle it throughout the program according to the timing of the timeline. So those are my different channels. Now, when I manipulate my keyframes on the timeline, there's a couple of features that are nice. So for example, I have this ability to ripple, which will essentially preserve the timing between keyframes, between moves after the keyframe I'm dragging. So if I want to drag this second keyframe right here, I can grab it and then it will preserve the timing of that other move after keyframe 2. However, if I turn that off, then you'll notice that wherever I move it, it's just going to adjust the timing of the move before and after that keyframe. And then of course I can undo any of my moves and redo them as I need. I can also zoom in and out on my timeline, so I might have keyframes that are real close together and others that are further apart. I can use those, or I can pinch zoom in out to see what I need to. So these controls over here on the right side, these controls are going to affect how the robot moves with the wand. So as I use the trigger and the joystick, these different controls will set which axis I'm locking to. Let's say I want to do a push in, right? In that case, if I want to push in along the camera axis, then I want to set this to a camera reference, and I want to turn on my snap to axis. Then I use my wand to align to the camera and push in on the joystick, and the camera will follow a straight line. So these different settings will affect how the camera moves as I push on the joystick and the wand. So down here at the bottom, I have my controls or my indicators that tell me the positions of the robot, right? So I can look at the different joints of the robot. I can look at the focus values, which these focus and zoom motors have been calibrated to the lens. So it's telling me exactly how many, what the marks are on the lens itself. Right now I'm at 3.9 feet and about 30 millimeters on the lens. And then of course it tells me my position in XYZ and the rotation of the camera in space as well. So those are the main features of the timeline. I also have some indicators down here, such as the robot status, the wand calibration status, and my fizz status. I can also edit a few parts of my timeline by clicking on this little edit icon here. So for example, I can set the frame rate. If I want to set this to maybe 48 frames per second, what that does is when I switch to view in frames right here, that'll change the frame rate of my timeline when it's in frames. I can also scale my program. So right now it's a 6-second program. But let's say I want it to be twice as fast. So I can drop that down to a 3-second program, and it will scale all the keyframes and compress them to be faster or longer, depending on if you're trying to speed up or slow down. So another cool feature is that this little help icon will help you to understand the different things on the UI if you ever forget. So you can click on, for example, this guy, and it will tell you about the ripple, what it does, and how it works. And you can kind of cycle through these to get some context on what these different controls do if you ever forget. We also have a way to get over to our joint control page here. So this button next to the question mark, this pops us over to the joint control page. This is where I can control the individual joints of the robot and the individual motors, such as my focus motors, or if I'm connected to my track, I will have a control here to move my track as well. So I select which one I want to control, and then I use the joystick to control the independent axes over here. Or I select which joint on the robot I want to move and the direction, and then I use the trigger, squeeze the trigger to move that joint. So lastly, we have our Hamburger menu up here on the top left. You pop into the menu and you have all your different options of things that you might want to do, including I can export VFX to either an FBX file or to a format that will be ready for reading into Unreal. So sometimes when you go to run a program, you will get some errors. So in this case, I got some warnings here. And if I open up down here, this little guy, it will show me the different warnings and errors that may have popped up during compilation. It'll tell me what the error was or the warning, and it will tell me what I need to do to fix it. And then I can move to that point in the timeline by clicking there, and it will tell me here's where the problem is. I can also click these buttons to hide those errors or warnings, or completely close them by clicking the close button. Now sometimes you also get pop-up notifications that will disappear after a few seconds. To see those notifications in their history, you can go to the menu and go to Activity, and this will show all the different pop-up notifications over the last little while.